Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 15th, 2022, and 5 p.m. You are at a Plan Commission of the City of Wausau meeting. Welcome. I guess I will note that it looks like all of our folks are here. Thank you for attending and being with us. We got a round of applause over here. First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from October 18th, 2022. I would entertain a motion. I have a motion by Bolkin and a second by Herbst. Any discussion? Otherwise, all of those in favor of approving the minutes from October 18th can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, next up, item number 2. It is our public hearing for discussion and possible action on rezoning 306 South 4th Avenue from a single-family residential zoning district to a 2-flat residential zoning district. So at this, do you want to give a spiel quickly before we open it?
Okay.
I'm looking at Bill instead.
Sure.
Thank you.
We have, so this property is obviously the second house on the corner on 4th Avenue. The owner had purchased the property with the understanding it could be a 2-family, but that wasn't the case. And so when we notified him of that, they're petitioning to come into compliance with the zoning by changing it to a duplex or 2-flat zoning. So as you can see in this area map, this area has different zoning classification, primarily single family in this immediate block, but across the street and to the north there's 2-flat and duplex, and behind it there's multifamily and townhouse. So it's kind of like a mixed residential area.
Perfect. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. So if there's anybody here who would like to speak on that, you can feel free to approach the podium and take your 3 minutes. I'm going to ask 3 times in case anybody walked in late or maybe changes their mind. If there's anybody here who would like to discuss the rezone on 306 South 4th Avenue, feel free to approach the podium. All right, last time, anybody here who'd like to give their feelings on the rezone at 306 4th Avenue? Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing. Thank you for watching. We're going to move on to item number 3, that is discussion and possible action on rezoning 306 South 4th Avenue from a single-family residential district to a 2-flat residential district. Maybe I would entertain a motion, unless there are questions that you need answered first. Otherwise, we could have a motion. Looks like I have a motion to approve the zoning change request from Alder Herbst. Do I have a second by Alder Watson? All right, any discussion here or questions? Anyone? Okay, all right, so all of those in favor of approving the rezone at 306 South 4th Avenue from a single-family residential zoning district to a 2-flat residential zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. For those paying attention at home, we will see that at the City Council on December 13th. All right, we are moving on to item number 4, discussion and possible action on approving a conditional use at 1102 Grand Avenue to allow for a residential recreational lakefront use for a 16 by 12 terrace area in a neighborhood mixed-use zoning district. We did talk about this last month, but if you want to maybe just remind us what it is.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you.
So yes, last month was the public hearing for the conditional use. As is our procedure with these, we hold a public hearing, gather any evidence, any input on it, and then we give a recommendation the following meeting, usually the following month in this case. So it's back before us again. This particular page being shown was new information from last time. Otherwise, the information is the same as before. You might remember that the homeowner is proposing to add a terrace area to their shoreline, and this falls within our river edge overlay district, so that requires a conditional use permit. And the use of the property is staying the same. It's a house with a home office. This is just an improvement to the property within that buffer area from the shoreline. So I guess we didn't see too many concerns. As mentioned last time, the homeowner's taken precautions to keep as much vegetation as possible and minimize the impacts. He's added riprap to the base to fortify the bank a little bit, so overall, it's meant to improve the property, so.
Any questions, or if the petitioner has anything to share, we'd welcome you. Otherwise, maybe somebody has a motion in mind.
I'll make a motion.
All right, I have a motion, I'm assuming, to approve the conditional use at 1102 Grand Avenue. Any second? Alder Watson with a second. Any discussion here? Yes, Mr. Borneman.
Just a question on it. We're simply looking at a flat terrace, correct? There'll be no walls, there'll be no roof. It's just a,
I'm seeing the
What?
petitioner nodding.
not,
Correct.
okay, all right. That's it.
Okay. Anything else? Alrighty, all of those in favor of approving the conditional use at 1102 Grand Avenue to allow for a residential recreational lakefront use for a 16 by 12 terrace area in a neighborhood mixed-use zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Happy building. Alrighty, next up is item number 5, discussion and possible action on amending the specific implementation plan at 1520 Elm Street and 1601 Elm Street for parking lot changes in a planned unit development zoning district. All right, Mr. Lynch is gonna lay it on us.
Right, so this is a change to the SIP, and it's kind of a continuation of the previous approval from June of '21, at which point it was approved, but there were some concerns with the landscaping islands and pedestrian connections across Elm. So Jay Knetter Architects has been working with the city staff as far as getting these plans put together. And they addressed our concerns with the pedestrian connection across Elm, as far as improving that and bringing it up to standards. One of the more significant changes has been the change to the traffic flow in the around the building, kind of changing to a one-way on the west side to allow for more parking along the west side retaining wall. That initially gave us a little bit of concern, but we did ask that they get consent from the Best Western, which is just to the north side of that, to for the Banter residents and guests to use their easement and access to 17th, and they did, and that's provided in the packet. The cover letter from the architect did note that they are open to discussion on the railing that's on that west side retaining wall, and you'll notice in the picture there's a picture of the old version of the railing, which is red and looks like 2 or 3 horizontal rails. That has since been changed, and it's now black, I believe, and has like 5 horizontal rails. Looks much nicer. It might be something to have that be a little bit more opaque. There's a possibility you'll see headlights shining onto 17th, but that is perhaps something that could be worked out in the future. Other than that, everything else seems in line and seems appropriate. So.
Okay. Any questions or possibly a motion?
Motion to approve the proposed changes to the SIP.
All right, I have a motion by Brueggemann. I have a second by Borneman. Any discussion here on this? All right, I'm not seeing anybody. So all of those in favor of amending the specific implementation plan at 1520 Elm Street and 1601 Elm Street for parking changes in a planned unit development zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we are really cooking tonight. Next up is item number 6, discussion and possible action on approving the specific implementation plan at 301 Washington Street to allow for a 5-story mixed-use building with underground parking in a planned unit development zoning district. Want to kick us off?
Sure.
Perfect.
Just get this up here first. Okay, so What's in the packet are the specific implementation plans. This is a PUD zoning. The general plans were approved through this commission as well as the city council a few months ago. So the plans are in the packet. They are, we feel, a complete package of materials. You can see the building elevations, floor plans, actually some additional information about a skywalk, which it's noted in the staff report that we still need to come to a more formal agreement with the developer on that skywalk. It is over city right-of-way, and we'll have to see how that parking in the city ramp is going to be allocated specifically, and just some details to work out with the parking arrangement for that additional parking across the street. So that agreement isn't part of this approval necessarily, but it has been noted by the developers that we'll work towards that more formalized agreement. But there are some renderings of the skywalk in the packet, just for your reference. Other than that, I guess staff comments are that the plans are fairly consistent with the general plans. From the specific plans are consistent with the general plans. I'm looking at the wrong one here. I wonder, I'm lost.
You sounded exactly correct.
I think I'm reading my own staff report. Anyway, so there's landscaping plans, building elevations, and generally, staff is comfortable with what's being shown here. There's a few, as I mentioned, the formal agreement with the parking needs to be worked out. Signage is being shown somewhat generalized. We request that they submit a sign permit application like we would normally do once we have the businesses in the first floor commercial spaces. We'll take a look to make sure that lines up with our zoning code. If there's any lighting on the building, again, it's not necessarily being depicted. Most of the lighting will come from the street lights. Will just be ambient lighting from the public poles, but there may be some accent lightings that we'd like to take a look at just to make sure that they meet our zoning ordinances. And I guess just a couple variations that they're proposing from our standard base zoning. One was mentioned with the general plan, and that's the size of those micro units. Our zoning code would say 400 square feet would be the minimum size. They're actually proposing units that are slightly smaller than that, I believe 355 square feet roughly, so slightly lower than what our zoning code would say, although through this process, that is a standard that can be flexible upon your approval. So that's one thing, the unit size. Another thing is the drive aisles in the basement were a little narrower than we would normally require at 24 feet. They're showing them at 23 feet 8 inches, so only 4 inches shorter than what we would normally look for. Our engineering department didn't have an issue with that 4 inches. So I guess that's about all I have. The petitioners are here for questions, or I can address them as well.
Sure. Do we have any questions or any additional comments? Or maybe a motion from this body? I see you kind of ready. Would you like to say anything, or you're welcome to?
No, I think Brad did a good job summing everything up. And in regards to the micro units, we're kind of letting our market drive the size of our units. And what we've seen is residents will trade space for less rent and to be in a downtown location. So that's a lot of the reason why. And a lot of our past properties, our studio units are the most demand. Those are really flying off the shelves. And then as far as the drive aisle, that was an attempt to kind of maximize the parking we have in our lower level. So we were able to get a few additional spaces in our lower level because of that. But other than that, I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Do you have a motion? Do you have a question?
Motion to approve the SIP as
All right. I have a motion by Brueggemann. Do I have a second? I have a second by Borneman. Any comments or questions? Alrighty, otherwise, okay, all of those in favor of approving the specific implementation plan at 301 Washington Street to allow for a 5-story mixed-use building with underground parking in a planned unit development zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes, and this is the final, it doesn't go to council.
Correct, yeah, this is the final step for zoning. As I mentioned, there's some follow-up things for permitting that will go through staff level.
Alrighty. Oh, yes, Mr. Fire Marshal.
I was just gonna mention that when you go over the skywalk, the way it's proposed right now is perfect height. Depending on what changes come, I would recommend that it's still that height.
Thank you. All right, item number 7 is notice of our next meeting, December 20th. I know you will all be in the spirit of the holiday. And last item on our agenda is I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Herbst and a second by Watson. All those in favor can signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.